Welcome to episode 4 of the Matlock podcast, The Rabbit and the Hawk.
In this week's episode, Madeline's investigations gather pace as she gains access to sensitive documents. Meanwhile, a widower seeks justice for his late wife, but Olympia must find a way to beat both Senior and Elijah to win the day. Can she find the smoking gun that determines the case? And if she does, will it matter?
I don't want to be indelicate here, but since you both recently lost a spouse...
Did Robert catch Sandy underneath the hooker wearing a flapper dress too?
Evening, Ian.
Good evening, Gerry. How are you today?
I think I'm looking quite fetching in my flapper dress.
Yes, I don't know what that is underneath you, though.
Let's say no more.
If you want to discuss your own enjoyment of the show with us, you can find us on social media at Colombo Podcast on Twitter or X, where we call it now, Facebook, Blue Sky. And if you want to see show notes, go to colombopodcast.com. If you want to see every episode 1 week or hear every episode 1 week early, go to our YouTube channel, Colombo Podcast Productions. Please leave reviews, comments, etc. Wherever you can. It's very much appreciated.
We're ready?
We are.
Let's crack on.
So the recap this week again focused on episode 1, but we do see the pinboard in close-up and we see Senior's name.
What's that?
Howard J. Markston.
Yeah, it looks like a Howard.
Yes, definitely. And J is always a popular middle initial.
Like the fox.
Yes, and Julian shares that surname, obviously.
Yeah, so we begin in the Kingston home.
Yes.
Where we find Madeline and Edwin in a panic when they wake up with Alfie apparently missing and his bed unslept in.
Yes, and thinking back to the times this happened with their daughter, they start to fret and to run around. I think Edwin tries phoning him.
Yes, they get a bit frantic. However, she finds him sleeping in her office, and after calming down, they wake him up and he immediately gets to work.
Yes, he'd found something in Olympia's emails about Wilbrexia, some redacted files.
Edwin is rightly more concerned about this taking over the youngster's life, but Alfie is keen to show Madeline these 4 redacted documents that may be hidden. These are the ones that have been mentioned on Reddit by these nutters, whistleblowers.
Yes.
The question is she really doing all this based on a rumour, based on gossip on a Reddit post?
Well, whistleblower could be internal.
It's very...
If it's just one person says there are documents, that's not a lot to go on.
Exactly. And it will only be one person.
It's not much to base a crusade on. No. If it's more like a WikiLeaks situation where you've seen bits of documents, then that's a bit more.
And you start posting them as proof.
Yes.
But, yeah, I don't know. It just seems like she's thoroughly breaking the law on a rumour from some weirdo on Reddit.
Yeah, she's leaning into her grief and letting it misguide her.
In any case, she decides that she needs to get the original files, and Alfie gives her the locator number for them before an annoyed Edwin asks about his homework and doesn't like the casual answer that he will simply say he was sick.
No, that's not the way things are done around here.
No. However, a beaming Maddie sends him off to get ready for school, but is rightly chastised by her husband for what she has got him involved in.
I'll talk to him. It won't happen again.
This is all he thinks about. This is all he cares about.
Because opioids killed his mother. And he wants the truth to come out.
He is a kid. What he wants, what's best for him, 2 different things. This is the second time this week he hasn't done his homework. And all of a sudden it's fine for him to lie to the teachers about that. Just like he's lying to his friends about why he moved here in the first place. This is too much, Madeline.
You're right. I'll use him less.
Okay, no more this week. Let him catch up on life.
So how will you get into the documents room?
Easy peasy. You focus on school. I've got this.
But what if you need tech support?
I'm pretty tech savvy by now. I've got this Google machine right here on my devil box.
Ollie, baby. It's Dad. I know you've been nervous about your test, but don't forget your 2.5 time.
So you meant to play Olympia's dead father's voicemail?
Don't be smart, you. And yes, I did. It's called exposure therapy. You hear things enough, you feel less bad. And I don't want to feel bad that I've taken Olympia's computer because she's made it crystal clear that we are not friends.
Morning, Maddie. I was just looking for you. How was your night?
Okay, so a couple of things there. One, it's good to see this relationships between Edwin and Alfie, the 3 of them, being fleshed out a bit more.
Yeah, it was a bit 2-dimensional up until now.
it's understandable and more realistic that Edwin or somebody will be concerned about.
Yeah, there's some form of tension there as well, yeah.
Yes. And also, our question from last week was answered there.
Yes, but why Madeline? Yes.
She does feel bad, or did feel bad about what she did.
And didn't want to. And I think the way that Alfie reacts to things is realistic. I don't think a child would consider the consequences of skipping school. He would say this is a bigger, more important. If my grandmother's dedicating her entire life to this, it's not a big deal if I skip some homework.
It's more fun.
Yeah, and also a bigger priority.
We cut to Olympia being, as we heard there, being unusually friendly.
Yeah, it's a good juxtaposition there from, we are not friends to good morning.
Yes. And Maddie understands that she wants something. Sarah can't help pipe up with a brief overview of the Walton case, where a woman died. Tell me how she died.
Respiratory failure, apparently from Legionella.
Yes. That reminded me of the first time I'd ever heard of this. It was a Legionnaire's disease, which I think is a form of it.
Okay.
And it was in a Quincy episode.
Right, and also in all the hospitals in Scotland.
Is it?
Probably every now and then you get an outbreak, I think.
Do you? And so they are blaming the building, the landlords.
Yes, I think this is kind of like companies who are set up to manage. I don't know if manage or own these properties or both.
Well, they're investing in a property portfolio. They'll be an investment company, no doubt.
Yeah.
And what they do, they buy. Insurance companies, perhaps, they do invest a lot in property. In any case, Sarah abruptly sits back down when she realises that Olympia is doing the talking, and she explains that her slightly eccentric and very anxious artist husband, or that's when I say her, the deceased husband.
Yeah, so she's Sandy and he's Robert. And as we heard at the top of the show, this is where Olympia notes that both Robert and Madeline have been recently bereaved, although Madeline hasn't. And
no, well, she has.
Well, not of her spouse. Okay. And after sort of a week exchanged laugh over this comment that we heard from Madeline, she agrees to help, but subject to a favour of her own that she needs to ask.
What's that?
She needs to see original files and needs Olympia to sign off on that so she can go to the document store because she's got an eye condition. And Olympia cuts her off, not interested in her small talk really here.
Yes, it distracts her enough to sign the access document as the title appears briefly on our screen.
Sarah at this point approaches Madeline to say that her therapist did.
Well, firstly she calls her Betty, refers to her as Betty White.
She does. And then says her therapist has advised her simply to accept that Olympia's not a big fan of hers.
But she wants to know how to get on her good side.
Well, she wants to know Madeline's secret sauce. But Madeline is immediately on her back foot here with Sarah's physical intensity.
Also, Sarah apparently doesn't see what the problem is with being intense.
Yes, so she's right in Madeline's personal space, and she's much taller than Madeline as well, so she kind of towers over her and intimidates her physically as well as with her words. And Madeline just asks her to take a step back and says to think about balance a bit more.
Yes, which I think confuses her.
Oh yeah, she doesn't understand the concept very well.
Meanwhile, Olympia catches up with her ex, Elijah. Now, we should say that earlier on there, when she was signing the document, she got a text from him saying, we need to speak urgently or something.
This is a device that's been, Sherlock did this 12, 13 years ago.
Why is that wrong? Just because someone else done it?
No, it's not that it's wrong. It's just dated. It comes across to me as dated.
I'm not sure. Maybe I don't know, because people communicate with their devices now. And you have to show that, either show it as a close-up or you just put it on the screen.
And to be fair, the placement of text on the screen is a factor in this show, or something that they do very deliberately. So,
yes.
Yeah, okay. I thought it felt a bit dated, but I can understand where it fits in the aesthetic of what they're trying to do. Fair enough, I'll back down on that one.
And she seems a bit taken aback when he tells her that the text that he sent was about business, as there is nothing personal anymore. Again, rightly so. She made the decision, made it quite clear without any discussion around it that he was dumped, so business is business.
Yeah, and I think throughout this episode she's quite unreasonable in her assessment of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like she wants him to not be okay with things. She's a bit maybe annoyed deep down that he's not begging or not trying to win her over.
Perhaps, and also the fact that, yes, he might be annoyed at her, but it's not something that is actually affecting the way he's working.
No.
It just affects the way he interacts with her.
Yes.
Anyway, this is about the Walton case, and there's a conflict of interest, and we find out in the next partners meeting. This is the first time we've seen a partners meeting since the pilot.
Mm-hmm. Elijah wants her to drop the case, the Walton case.
Yeah, so the way I took it is one of their bigger clients has acquired the company that ran the building. Is that how it works?
Yes.
Yes. So they would still be liable in theory because they acquired the liability with the company that they've bought.
And I think that was explained by a golf trousered wearing senior as they enter the boardroom.
Yes, and this client pays the firm $10 million annually. So as you say, Elijah suggests that Olympia refers her client elsewhere.
But Julian, he defends her and says that this would send out the wrong message to all of their smaller clients, and Olympia reminds them of the rules that she signed her client first, so I suppose she's got first.
We've seen this before with Julian, where he kind of likes to antagonise people subtly in these meetings.
I like Julian.
Yes, he's got a playful nature to him.
In the first episode of the pilot episode, I thought, yeah, this guy's going to be the scumbag, the one you're meant to root against.
Yeah.
But he's quite cool.
Yeah, no, he's okay so far. As they talk about these firm rules, which should entitle Olympia to retain her client, we go to Madeline and the other two sidekicks.
I don't know how they can hear.
I don't know if they can hear, they just happen to be talking about rules. It's one of these things, it happens a couple of times in this episode where a conversation that starts in one room is picked up in another room, apparently coincidentally.
Well, what role would she be talking about then?
I think the implication is they've had the same conversation.
Okay. Yeah, she says that the rules only exist until the boss changes them, and remarks on Senior's very garish trousers.
Billy notes that he plays golf when he's snuffed out somebody's soul, and Madeline raises the question of a firewall, and this is what I mean by that topic is then picked up by Elijah in the meeting, who obviously can't hear Madeline.
Sure. What we're doing is we're being presented here as Senior having no scruples, no morals. He's the obvious villain, the villain of the piece.
We'll return to that topic, I think.
And as you say, coincidentally, they've came to the same solution of the firewall, and it's agreed that the firm will effectively act as two separate companies representing their own clients.
Yes, so there's a brief exchange here about what information should and should not be shared, and Senior suggests that they should refer to the old axiom of I'll know it when I see it, and Olympia says, well, that might apply to pornography, it shouldn't apply to a firewall situation. He says, I don't know, we're negotiating who gets screwed.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite nicely done.
It was.
Much better than I did it there.
Outside, Madeline thinks that agreeing the terms will take a while, and she's going to leave, but wants a text if they start bumping butts with an agreement, to signal an agreement.
So Billy says he'll let her know, and when Madeline leaves, Sarah wants to talk to him about her advice.
Well, yeah, first of all, she thinks that Madeline is very much out of touch. Not about the butt bumping, but that no one apparently has life balance when just out of law school. She thinks this is an old-fashioned view.
Yes, however, Billy suggests to her that he, in fact, does have family, friends, and a girlfriend, which astonishes her.
Yeah, her name's Claudia, and he talks about her all the time. She pretends that she does listen to what he says, but thought that she was one of his, I quite like this, his 11 million sisters.
Yes, and you can see Billy's quite hurt by this exchange, and you see throughout the rest of the episode that he's not pleased with Sarah.
Yeah, and I think this is what this show does well. It's week by week we build up a bit of a background and we flesh out these other supporting characters.
Yeah. Yes, and their relationships rather than just how they relate to other people. Yes.
So, at the records room, Maddie approaches a new character. I think his name is Riku, the admin guy.
Yeah, he works there. He's on the desk. He is enforcing the law laid down by Mrs. B. Belvin? Mrs. B.
Mrs. Belvin, yes. She's got a new policy that entails having to email them for an appointment.
Yes, to view physical records.
Yes.
Madeline asks if Riku could please waive this because she's new and she's here now.
And then tries to pull rank in him. Well, I think she says that her boss outranks his boss. But this is overheard by Belvin.
Almost out of character for her, for the character she presents at work. She tries to quite aggressively say, my boss outranks your boss. And Mrs. B, who has just appeared behind her, conveniently slaps her down, saying that doesn't apply down here.
And so after using her phone to send the email, Madeline is further frustrated when she receives a message that the butt bumping has started, but Belvin won't give her access for another 20 minutes. Why does she have to be there after the bumping? I mean, doesn't have to. She's not integral to this. She could be 10 minutes late and get brought up to speed, surely.
Yeah, but she doesn't have 20 minutes. She knows that Olympia's going to want her to work on something now that the agreement's in place.
Okay.
So, back upstairs in the office, Olympia is telling Madeline and the other two. Just Madeline?
I think it's the corridor. I'm not sure it's the office.
Sorry, I meant as opposed to the record room.
Right.
So, the working area.
Yes.
Yes, so Olympia notes that Senior's got his client to agree to the firewall and they now need to persuade Robert to sign off. And Madeline thinks he will be reluctant to do so, and she is dismayed to learn that they now have to, that all four of them, go to his house.
This was incredible. 4 lawyers required to go and get one person to sign a document. They are ripping. I mean, they're charging by the hour.
Yep.
This isn't a freebie.
This is 4 hours work. Yeah,
I would be absolutely. This is. You're conning your client. Someone's paying for this.
yeah. Well, in the end, they're not. But yes,
Yeah, but they're billing these hours off the victory they're hoping to get.
unless they're doing it on a no-win, no-fee basis or a percentage
But
basis.
even not.
So the individual hours aren't maybe billed for this type of case.
I don't know. I think they bill individual hours.
I don't know.
4 people, and your boss going with you. Well, if you're going, you don't need me. You need Madeline, perhaps on her own, to
persuade,
2
yeah.
people tops. You don't send 4 lawyers to get a signature. The other 2 are just standing about watching.
Yeah. Yep.
Ridiculous.
They're learning.
No, that's no way are they doing this. That's getting billed.
We now meet Robert, who's a familiar face to me and probably lots of other people.
Yeah, we'll get to that in the trivia.
Yeah.
I thought it might be. Yeah, he's quite agitated as he invites the 4 in and wants to know why his firm is now also representing the landlord.
Yes, he's been contacted directly by somebody else at Jacobson Moore offering him $100,000, essentially to go away.
Yes, and she says that the person who called has acted unethically, and then explains the firewall arrangement and tries to play it down before asking him to sign it off, but he's a bit panicky, and so Madeline is given the nod to do her thing.
Robert? Hi. Madeline Matlock. I recently joined the legal team.
Matlock? Who was that, Andy Griffith?
Yep. I never met him. I saw Don Knotts in the airport once, but he'll always be Barney to me. It was so hard for me to stop setting the table for 2. I lost my husband 2 years ago.
I'm sorry for your loss.
I'm so sorry for yours. But I admire that you're fighting for your wife. Because I think fighting for justice is incredibly important. And I know it's nerve-wracking and you're tired and sometimes you just want to stop looking backwards and move forward already. But you're so close to the end. This is just a detail. There's nothing to worry about.
So you'd go forward?
Absolutely. People who are responsible for Sandy's death need to pay in a big way, a meaningful way, or it'll happen to other people.
Okay. I'm in.
Now, I've actually, I think, noted later on, but what she's doing here appears to me to be method acting. The Stanislavski, I think, is a person that I've read about. Obviously, method acting is using the emotions that you have from your past or whatever and then interpreting that within the role that you're playing. So I think here, even though she's being very, very manipulative and she's telling a lie about her husband dying, I think she is harnessing, channeling
yes.
her emotions. And later on, when she does it, she's very manipulative with Belvin as well in this episode, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what she's doing here. So cut her a little bit of slack. It's a lie, but based on real feelings, I think.
It's pure Machiavellian evil.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Anyway, back at Jacobson Moore, Elijah admits to Olympia that it was him who called Robert and that his priority is no longer Olympia, it is found it. The client, obviously.
Yeah, I think she feels a bit embarrassed when she openly takes this as meaning her personally, until he points out that, he meant her client.
He then calls her counsellor, which Julian overhears and notes that he's taking the firewall seriously. Elijah's gone, and Olympia says to Julian, so I almost thought this conversation would have been more likely the other way around.
Yeah.
She says to him that their amicable divorce is reminding her why she married him. And he says that's not happened to him, which is obviously a joke.
Yes. So she obviously holds no real grudge. We've never,
We've talked about this before. There's indications from Senior before that Julian has done something terrible.
Yeah.
But there's no issues apparently between these two in terms of their relationship with one another. Neither of them's holding a grudge, neither of them is bitter.
Now, let's
see.
assume it's the obvious thing of, say, cheating.
Yeah.
But you don't get the feeling, okay, so Senior is portrayed as someone who is very immoral.
That wouldn't bother him.
I don't think, exactly. I think he's been through a few wives. Has that even been mentioned? Yeah, I think that has been mentioned. So yeah.
Yes, because they talk about his divorce as being terrible.
Yes, so for Senior to think something's terrible, it has to be pretty terrible, but it's weird because Olympia doesn't act as if anything horrible has happened to her.
Unless she doesn't know.
Yeah, maybe.
But then you'd think there'd be more breadcrumbs about that if that was what the case was. Anyhow, they laugh together, and he reminds her that although his dad does love her, he won't hesitate to sever her spine in the line of duty, essentially.
In the threesome office, a nervous Walton is told by Madeline that mediation is in just under 1 hour before she asks Sarah and Billy about how to get on Belvin's good side.
Yes, and Sarah again exposes her lack of empathy, perhaps, when she says there is no way to do that, and Billy explains that there is if you listen. Sarah asks Billy to stop harping on her, essentially, and says that the only reason she didn't realise Claudia was his girlfriend is because he looks like one of her sisters.
I like this.
There's an exchange where she holds up a photo and tries to get folk to tell which one's which.
In any case, Billy has given Madeline some vital information which she uses in the records room by telling the pet-loving Belvin that her dog is ill.
This is outrageous behaviour.
You think so? You don't think it's outrageous that she's talking about a non-dead husband? Now she's only talking about a sick dog.
Yeah, but she's doing this to get something from someone. It's different.
She does it with
the husband.
She stood up with Walton to get him to sign off.
Yeah, but that wasn't something that was he was strongly against doing. That was just something he was unsure about.
But neither Belvin. Belvin's just a job's worth.
So I disagree with that.
Administrator.
She's a pro. She's a true pro.
Well, she's professional, all right, but doesn't it personally affect her if Madeline sees some records? She's not trying to take anything away from her.
This is more egregious to me. Anyway, it works, essentially. She's allowed access to the documents.
Yeah, let's not skip over. What's the dog name? Do you remember?
Cookie.
And what's Belvin's?
Barry Manilow.
Yeah, so Madeline finds the Will Brexa case, but there appears to be a file missing, just as Olympia texts and asks for an urgent chat. And so she calls Alfie at school and asks him if he can find out how many pages were in the missing file and who signed for the delivery of them, which he's happy to do after she sends him a photo of the locator number. I'm not sure how he could access. Is he hacked into the...
Yes, he's got access to the system via Olympia's laptop.
Right, yeah, okay.
For surely it was going to be flagging up to IT that she's logging in on a laptop that's been written off.
Yeah, you're assuming
that if IT couldn't fix the previous laptop, they're obviously no use. No. It's an underinvested area in the business. I noted here that she's essentially spiting Edwin by doing this. She's completely disregarding his concerns and doing what she wants for her.
Yeah, ends. But I don't think it's deliberate. I don't think she's doing it out of spite. I think she's just doesn't care. Yeah. It's the same as Sarah. Mm-hmm. She's only interested in what she wants. Yes. Yeah. Now in Olympia's office, she finds her acting a bit odd as she tries to unconvincingly be subtle and casual about asking Madeline to keep an eye on Elijah and let her know if he's acting a bit weird.
Work weird,
yes. Madeline, I think she says, I'm 85% sure I know what you mean, but Olympia's a little bit more specific, and she says, that she wants to make sure that Elijah is not taking out other things on Walton, other than
personal things.
Yes.
In the mediation, we meet this mediator. He's called Carl Burton. He looks like a Carl.
He does look like a Carl, yes. It reminds me a bit of maybe a younger Stephen Tobolowsky.
Okay, what's he best known for?
Best known for probably Groundhog Day. Do you remember the guy who stepped in the puddle every day?
Yes.
Him. Yeah, but he's known as for being in everything.
He didn't really look like this guy. For some reason, he brought to mind for me, if you remember back to Quantum Leap, the one that was the Western, and the journalist or the guy who was writing.
Yeah, I can see that.
Anyway, at this point we should explain what's happening. He speaks to the two sides separately, and we see them in turn in the sort of quick fire way. Also,
we should say that before it all begins, I think that he says that as for best practice, they should minimise socialising.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any problems.
No, Elijah readily agrees to this, which gains an eyebrow raised between Maddie and Olympia.
And Senior's quite happy with the plan because he doesn't want Olympia to have any grounds for appeal when they beat her.
So what happens is, they both present each side of their case, their evidence, and in the end, Olympia points out that Legionella was found in the water tank, and it would be an incredible coincidence if she caught this disease from somewhere else. And as such, she wants $2.5 million.
However, the other side have a secret document to present. They are capping their final offer at $250,000, and this document proves that there's a potential other cause for the death.
Going back to, was it last week? I was a bit, to be fair, astounded that Alex got $9 million for what happened. This is someone's wife dying, and we're talking $2.5 million at the top end.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, she wasn't asking for $9 million, to be fair.
No, but she's probably asking for more than 2.5.
If the wife was long-term sick. She's not earning any money. True.
Anyway, that's America for you.
There are reasons to do these things. Yeah, they're never good reasons.
Anyhow, so we find out about this revised lower number a little bit later in Olympia's office as she brings Walton up to speed, I think.
Yeah, she notes that this study that the other side have presented shows that there's toxins that could have contributed to her death, and his face falls as he realises this could be from his art supplies. He could have killed his own wife. Yeah,
with, I think it's a resin compound. And I think they all look a bit stunned. They think, this is actually quite a big problem for us as a...
Yeah. Elijah's next seen setting out a hardline position.
Yes, she is back in the boardroom and denying that Walton had anything to do with the death of his wife and wants time to address their report. But Elijah causes another eyebrow raise when he wants to refuse this and insists that she look at the landscape, the bigger picture, and move on.
There's nothing to consider here, he says. You've got 4 hours, and at that point, the $250,000 goes away.
Oof. He stands and ends the meeting, and Madeline tells her that the whole interaction was, if not weird, certainly hostile, and she, Olympia, sends the twosome to have Sandy's medical records retested, and they've got 3 hours to do
this. Is this likely?
I'm not sure you can tell the hospital how long, they'll have their own...
Maybe they should with an open checkbook.
Yeah.
Back at Robert's home.
Or maybe she just says, that's what I want, and it's up to you two as...
Get it done.
Yeah. Do whatever you need to do, make sure it's done.
Yeah. Back at Robert's home, he and Madeline are there to look for the documentation that will prove his resins were not toxic. Yeah,
and before they do this, there's a moment as he goes to open the door, and he forgets, I think, that his wife is gone, or this is a...
Yeah, he talks about this, the moment when you put the key in the lock and for a split second everything feels normal.
It's a bit like if you wake up, sometimes you forget things, either good or bad. You go, it was only a dream.
You forget you killed that guy.
Yeah, well, no, you've been watching, I know what you did last summer. Yeah, and she genuinely responds that she would give the world to live in that split second. So it's...
Yeah, that's probably genuine, but again, she's not talking about...
Oh, which doesn't say anything.
Spouse.
Yeah, which doesn't say, that's all she says.
Yeah. Inside, he's looking for his supplies and she's completely disinterested in dealing with her own problems.
Yeah, she gets a message from Alfie that there was a 342-page document which is missing, but he has still to find out who signed for it. I've got an issue with this. Whoever signed for it, that doesn't necessarily mean they are the people who...
The person who was closest to the door when the delivery guy showed up.
Yeah, but it could have been signed for, they could have sat there for weeks or months and then someone else went in and took them away.
Unless there's a system for legal documents where they have to be signed for by the addressee. But I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, but even that, it doesn't mean to say that that's the person who then get rid of them.
The person who received it, they all worked together in theory, or they could have all been working together on the case, yeah. And in fact, presumably they were, otherwise they wouldn't all be considered as part of this project that Madeline's working on.
She then notices a table full of little, I think it must be resin or glass, rabbits.
Yes.
And Walton tells the backstory of how or why they're there.
Yes, and it's also the story which gives the episode its title, about the rabbit and the hawk. The story goes, his wife used to sit and look out the window at I think it's a rabbit that had a couple of babies, and a hawk would come and swoop down, take the 2 babies, and the same thing would happen year after year. So he was making these glass baby rabbits.
No, it wouldn't happen year after year. It happened once. She was what? No, I can 100% tell you're wrong here, Iain. Don't you raise your eyebrows at me. What happened was, because he says it was odd, it was in Williamsburg, which it's in the city. It's not really
He said it became an annual event.
Nope. He was not watching a hawk. He would not sit there and wait for he'd have to be on that every year.
Every year she watched the hawks steal the baby rabbits.
Are you realising how ridiculous this is? Because the timing, she would have to be at that window at the same time the hawk she'd have to be there 24 hours a day.
So what happened annually?
He made the little thing as
every year he made an annual rabbit.
Yes.
So why? There's no more babies being stolen.
No. You think, honestly,
anyway, the story ends
you're feeling stupid now, aren't you?
No,
you think about it.
He watched this every year.
Every
the rabbit
year.
had more babies.
So she got cut. They both sat there and went, let's watch the baby rabbit's been killed.
Yes.
Let's not do anything about it.
Well, it seemed a bit weird, but that's the story. Anyhow, the story ends
let's move on.
With him suggesting that eventually the hawk came for her.
Yes. He starts to cry and asks when it gets easier, and she honestly tells him that it's a nonsense about time healing. It just changes you enough so that you can cope.
And again, that's probably from genuine personal experience.
He thanks her for her honesty and goes to check the spare bedroom, but is initially reluctant for her to help him, as he admits he's a bit of a hoarder. And when they walk in, she sees it's quite a mess, but not as bad as I expected.
No, it's not one of those ones that you see in the television where you can't get in the door.
And it doesn't look dirty. It just looks...
The one I'm thinking of is in Toast of London.
Yeah. Oh, Toast of London is amazing. Anyway, yeah, it's just like a lot of documents piled up.
Yeah.
It's like a junk room, a storage room.
Yes.
But not.
So I'm just thinking of the Toast of London scene where he has to crawl through the gap in the Yes. Meanwhile, back in Elijah's office, Olympia is exasperated about this 4-hour deadline.
Yes, and is telling Elijah not to take out their differences on her elderly client. But he insists it's just business and reminds her the clock is ticking.
Yeah, it was quite cold.
Yeah.
But professional. Back in Robert's schoolroom, Robert starts making a point that I've made on this podcast before and which I will come back to probably later today because I think it's where we're headed to with this series. He tells Madeline that he and Sandy would fight about this case because he was fed up with it taking up all her time and it becoming an obsession, and he was missing being able to spend that time with her.
And then...
Yes, she finds some water damage behind a chair.
And a big pile of papers. So, if he didn't have all this clutter, he would have noticed this sooner and saved his wife's life.
Well, if that's what killed her, yeah. We skip to a guy in a hazmat suit removing things from the room.
Yeah. Also, we should say this is the first indication. They sort of both move awkwardly towards the...
Yeah, he kind of brushes against her and it's
and they go, oh, sorry, excuse me, you first, yeah.
And you know that she's acting that because she is still happily married at home.
Of course. Yeah, so as you say, we cut to the people in hazmats taking out evidence, and Madeline correctly predicts that they will find black mould, as is then confirmed by an assessor who calls it a complete S-word show.
Literally, that's what she says. And it's it's all gone to HE double hockey sticks.
She blames the cheap pipes and says that they were banned years ago by the city and landlords were required to do a retrofit.
Yes, and so Olympia texts Billy and Sarah to add a test for this black mould to the medical checks.
Well, this is now the sort of smoking gun that they were after.
And yeah, she and Madeline reflect that there could well be more buildings with this problem.
Well, I think there's 72 properties, or is it buildings themselves, or just individual property? I'm not sure.
I think their assumption is that none of the buildings owned by this company will have had the work done.
Yeah, but I'm saying, is there 72 different apartment blocks, or just 72?
I think it's blocks. So
that's a lot.
Because they talk about 300 potential claimants.
You're right. Yeah. So at the hospital, Billy and Sarah are still having a go at each other, as we find out that she has a therapist, which she does not want to talk about.
No, not at all. And before they can, or right after they agree not to talk, the doctor comes out with the test results.
Meanwhile, a triumphant Olympia enters Senior's office to tell him that black mould was found in Sandy's blood and that it was everywhere in the apartment, and they are therefore rejecting the lowball offer.
A seemingly phlegmatic Senior says to give him until 8 a.m. and he'll give her a proper offer. She suspects nothing, and we head over to Madeline's home.
Yes, things are not quite as positive at the Kingston mansion.
Urgent. Call me. That's the text message you sent our grandson while he was still at school. What happened to nothing else the rest of the week?
It was...
all important, I'm sure. And by the way, he also wanted me to tell you that he finally figured out that shipping receipts could not be accessed remotely. But he tried when he came home from school with a supposed headache.
I didn't realize he'd do that.
Well, you shouldn't have called him in the first place.
There was no other option.
Do you even hear yourself?
Do you hear yourself? You have no idea what it's like lying all the time. I'm doing all the work.
Well, I never wanted you to do it in the first place.
But you agreed to it. You have no right to sit there like some sanctimonious judge.
You pulled Alfie out of school right after you told me you weren't going to use him. You've clearly lost your moral center.
I won't use Alfie again. Are you happy?
Nobody in this house is happy.
Well, on that we agree.
Yeah, as we said earlier, it's good to see this being played out a little bit.
And good on Edwin for standing up to her, because I think he could easily have been browbeaten.
He could easily play the sort of character you get in maybe sitcoms, you know, Hyacinth Bouquet's husband, he's sort of meek and mild-mannered.
Says what he needs to say to
because
keep
she's a
the
very
peace.
sort of dominant woman who's very, you know, driven and smart, so it'd be easy for him to...
And you can also understand why someone who is willing to stand up to her would be attractive to her, and why that might be why they've had a successful marriage.
Yes, we know as well he was a lawyer himself at the firm, so he's not just some sort of not living off her earnings.
That's right. We cut forward a little bit where she's in the kitchen chopping vegetables, and he comes in and asks what happens next, and she says she's in it alone.
Yeah, and says that's for... It's not vegetables, it's onions.
Well, they're vegetables.
Yes, but you have to... There's a reason why it's not a carrot. It wouldn't be the same.
Okay. Well, we'll specify. It's onions that she's chopping for another Machiavellian scheme, and bitterly remarks that she's on her own.
Yeah, she's clearly still furious. We see that she's in a bit of a daze as she walks through the building, the office building that is, while replaying the argument with him in her head.
Yes.
She gets into the elevator with a relaxed senior still in his golfing outfit with clubs, and then walks past the boardroom where we see people shredding documents.
Yeah, I think you're meant to not really take in what she's seeing, because she's not apparently taking in what she's walking past. You see, and you also saw folk going in the lift as she was coming out the lift.
Yes. She arrives at the record room, and as she does, she inhales from her bag of onions.
One of those ones where you tweeze out a hair to get the tears to flow, except she's using the onions in this case, because she wants to manipulate Mrs. B into once again allowing her access to particular records. However, Olympia shows up at this point, and there is a bit of a confrontation as Mrs. B lambasts her for not knowing about Madeline's dog.
Yeah, but before that, it's not Mrs. B now. It's Emmeline.
Yes, they're now best pals. And she indeed calls Madeline her dear friend in a moment.
Yeah. So did you mention there, she said, Cookie died the previous night?
She tells her that Cookie died, and when Olympia shows up and doesn't show any knowledge of Madeline even having a dog, she is chastised severely by Mrs. B.
Yeah, and I think when she says, I didn't realise you had one, Maddie uses this as well. She says, well, you told me that we were not friends, we're only colleagues. So she's able to sort of work on her feet here, thinking on her feet.
But Olympia's a bit taken aback by this because you didn't realise that Madeline had taken this so literally.
Yeah.
She apologises for blurring the boundaries, but you feel like she didn't see this as a hard line.
No, but I think it's when someone is upset, obviously the passing of a pet or whatever it is, you just feel there's nothing you can say. You can't argue it. You feel as if you have to, no matter what you believe, take a step back and...
Yeah, but I think from Olympia's point of view, when she says we're colleagues, not friends, that was in the moment. It wasn't, look, here's a line, we'll never be friends. Whereas Madeline took it as a hard thing, like is implied here.
Yeah. So, Emmeline requests that she give her dear friend some space to grieve. And a puzzled or confused Olympia has no option other than to oblige as Maddie lets out a little whimper.
Yes. Back in the meeting room, we hear that in light of the new evidence found, they've made a very generous offer to not only Robert, but also anyone else affected by this.
Well, I've got a question about this. They've said that it'll be $6 million for Walton, and they will do repair work on all the other buildings, and compensation will be provided up to a maximum of $300,000 per person for those affected if they can prove this. Walton can't accept that on behalf of all these other people.
No, but you can agree not to sue on the basis that they're doing this.
How does this work from, if you're the landlord's company?
Well, if you're one of the other people, you might sue them because you're not willing to accept
for $6 million, every other person could...
Yeah, you can't bind them.
No,
but they might be quite happy to get their $300,000 because they're A, not dead, and B, weren't aware there was a problem.
I just think this is, again, unethical. So I, as Walton, will be saying, I'm taking $6 million, you guys should be happy with your $300,000.
Well, his wife died.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
And he does agree to these terms, and Olympia, on the way out of the room, is already starting to think about, not a class action, but getting the people together to get their claims in.
In the record room, Riku is getting suspicious of what Madeline is doing on the PC, and she is not happy to eventually see the signature of the document or the missing documents.
I was quite concerned because it was the exact signature that I used to use when I was a lawyer.
One that can't stand up.
Literally just a squiggle, yeah.
It's the type of thing that you sign when a delivery person comes with a little palm. You've got to use your finger.
Yes, that sort of thing.
No one can sign a name. You just give it a little brush.
That's the one. Riku's investigations into Madeline are curtailed, though, because he's called away on a specific point.
Yes, it's an urgent demand for some files to be sent up to Senior relating to a new corporate entity for the company being represented on the other side of the firewall.
And in the U3 office, Madeline, Billy and Sarah now realise that what Senior is doing is taking Foundate bankrupt to avoid having to pay any of these settlements.
Madeline, or Olympia, is it? Refers to, I think it's Olympia, refers to it as the old Texas two-step and references Johnson and Johnson.
Indeed.
Yes, as you say, essentially they've declared part of their business bankrupt in order to get out of having
they've sold the assets to the new company.
Yeah.
So the one that owes the money has no assets to pay from.
And at this point, she flashes back, Madeline that is, to seeing the shredding, seeing the two people who were leaving, they were the bankruptcy lawyers, and realising that Senior in his golfing attire was obviously unconcerned and relaxed because
yes, and as Billy says, he wears those trousers when he's crushed a soul. That's before she talks to Olympia.
However, they are too late. They arrive at the boardroom and signal for Olympia to come out just as Walton is putting pen to paper. Madeline explains what has just happened, and she sighs as she realises the settlement is worthless.
Yeah, it wasn't Olympia. Olympia wasn't there earlier.
No, it was Madeline talking to Billy and Sarah, yes.
Yes, they're quite restrained in their response. I would have expected more wailing and gnashing of teeth at this clear, unfair resolution.
Yeah, certainly from Walton.
Well, yeah, you're 6 million. You've just signed for 6 million, and they're like, actually, you're getting nothing. Square root of nothing.
And so this week, Madeline finds herself with a partner on the crying patio and with someone who reflects her own situation.
Well, the building will still be fixed. No one else will get sick. That's something, at least.
But Sandy wanted them to hurt. And I couldn't. I didn't.
I think she'd be proud that you fought so hard for her.
Oh, God, I hope so. Her last years were all about the case, and if I'm honest, we fought a lot about it. I felt like it was too much.
She needed justice, Robert.
I know, but I needed time with her.
How'd you get through it?
Compromise is the key, right? That and a lot of donuts. Yeah. Reminding ourselves other person's not the enemy, just in pain, just scared. Plus it all came out of love, right?
Right. You're a smart guy, Robert.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I wanted to give this to you to say thank you when we won. Although maybe it's more appropriate now that we've been slaughtered by the Hawk.
I'll treasure this.
I'm grateful for the support, I really am. And actually, I did have a question. Since it's been nice spending time together, I'm wondering if you'd want to do it again. Maybe at a restaurant or back here.
Oh, Robert, that's so kind. And if I was ready, you'd be the perfect person to have a meal with. But I'm not really dating yet, so I know that's hard to hear.
Maddie, I've known you for less than a week. You didn't break my heart.
Oh.
It seems like that should be the end of the episode. They've come to a resolution. He's accepted the situation, but no, there's still quite a lot to go.
There's quite a lot to go, yes. Elijah enters Olympia's office and starts to claim that he accepts she's pissed at him. However, she is more concerned about what she feels is his unprofessional behaviour, and that others have noticed this hostility, which she thinks is due to him being dumped.
Outside the office, we see Madeline intercept Julian, who's on his way there.
My man. She
does say that. And he signs a document for her.
Yeah, so that they don't have to interrupt him. She says they're arguing about the case.
That's it. Elijah, as we go back into the office, admits that it is hard for him, so he's going to go to the Dallas office for a month.
Although it's not what he really wants. And that's what we discussed earlier with Julian and Olympia. You'd think that one of them would work at another office or another firm.
It's a bit tough when they've got the kids, though, at school locally.
But you're in New York. It's sort of
what's a lot. Dallas. He's going to Dallas.
No, but she could just get a job for another firm.
Oh, you mean leave permanently the firm? Give up her job that she's worked hard to build?
No.
Get into a firm where she have fewer credit in the bank or less credit in the bank.
Oh, yes, if you're worried about being seen to be in relationships with the
wasn't worried
boss's
about that
son.
until last week's
exactly,
episode.
yeah. I'm sure she got another high-flying job at one of the other thousands of firms in New York City.
Yeah. Anyway, when Elijah tells her it's not what he wants, that makes Olympia a wee bit emotional, quite a lot emotional.
Yeah, she tries to hold this together as Maddie walks in and tells her that she intercepted Julian just in case there was anything weird going on.
Well, that's a reference back to earlier when Olympia asked her to watch out for anything weird.
And now sort of more composed Olympia responds by stating that it cost the firm $4 million in fees and penalties to do this two-step, and for another measly $2 million they could have settled ethically. I'm not sure she understands how law firms work. It was another $2 million.
Yeah, no, they've saved $2 million, and also they no longer have any liability going forward for anyone who chose not to accept their...
But I suppose what it's doing is hammering home the perception that Olympia is one of the good guys. She has got a moral compass.
So they say, or so it seems. She refers to the place as a viper's nest, which Madeline says is the understatement of the year.
Yeah, and I think she apologises for the dog situation earlier
Yes, and for the boundary blurring.
I think Madeline perceives this as a weakness now, a way in.
Yes, she's now going to take advantage of this opportunity, and she says that life is blurry and they aren't just colleagues, but they're not quite friends, and suggests perhaps they can be allies in the viper's nest.
With a sly smile, Olympia agrees that this would be a good situation.
Yes, and that she trusts Madeline, which
Yes.
is exactly what Madeline wanted.
Yeah, she's quite brazen about saying that. I think she actually says, "You can trust me."
Yes.
I mean, really, rubbing your nose in it.
Out in the lift, we see Sarah and Billy finally call a truce and get him to admit why he was upset.
Why was that?
Well, he considered them to be friends, and it was upsetting to him that she didn't even know about his personal life when he's been talking about it. It's as if she wasn't really paying attention to him all along.
We find out he's been dating Claudia for over 8 years.
Yes. Well, she's only known him for a year, though.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. She apologises and then opens up. And after warning him not to make the "aw" sound, tells him that her therapist does know his name, as she talks about her friend at work quite often.
Yes.
Of course he does aw.
Of course. And then as they come out the lift, they meet Claudia, and Billy introduces Sarah to her. And, there's a hat tip to the wokerati out there when it's revealed that Sarah is...
gay.
Well, that's the assumption.
Which, again, and I think building up...
I feel like I was hesitant to say that there. I wasn't. I was looking for a better word that would have been more interesting, but yeah.
Sarah says she's not looking to date as they walk off in good terms, but we can see perhaps a chink of jealousy and regret as her smile quickly fades. So she's looking
sad.
She sees someone who's got this balance, got a partner, is going home for...
She doesn't know how to do that.
Yeah, she's on her own probably. You'd imagine going home for a microwave meal for one, and feeling a bit down.
Yeah. Back upstairs, Julian has brought some catharsis for Olympia.
Yeah, I thought this was extremely odd. I didn't really find this acceptable or even believable. So yeah, we end up in the crying patio, and he has brought a box of what contains seniors' meaningful trophies and awards and all that type of stuff. And she proceeds to happily destroy them by taking a golf... Firstly, this debris is falling from the crying patio and kill someone below.
Shards of glass.
Yeah. So she's smashing up these trophies and what have you with a golf club as he happily sort of places one on the tee with another.
Yeah.
And
this might make her feel better, but it doesn't help Robert or anyone else who's been affected by the black mould.
No. It's just a weird thing for Julian to do, because it's not like he hates his dad. If he
they have a weird relationship.
Weird, that's different. Like, this would be if you don't speak to your dad and you hate him.
Well, I think he just, it's emphasising his affection for Olympia.
Well, that's definitely what it's doing. And I've noted here, I thought he was going to be a bit of a dick, but he seems pretty cool just now.
Well, yeah, so what the show's doing here is setting up these two as good guys. Senior's a bad guy. He must be the one. We're going to get...
Surely we're going to have a twist at some point.
Well... In Senior's office now, Madeline congratulates him and reminds him of her interest in the big bucks in the corporate law department.
She starts to apologise for being so forthright, but then notes with amazement a photo of him and George W.
Yes, he points out another one of him with Karl Rove, and they talk about the value of connections and how important it is to keep them.
And how hard they are to gain. And as she leaves, reminds him to think of her or about her request.
Yes.
And when she arrives home, an unsettled Edwin is waiting for her. And, well, they both apologise and make up.
Yeah, he's obviously not comfortable, even though he was in the right, he's not comfortable with the disharmony, so he tries to resolve the situation, and she notes that she was only defensive because he was right, and they start to argue over who is sorrier.
Yeah. She then goes on to tell him that what she's doing is harder than she thought. But when he asks about the rabbit, the little one she got as a gift, it seems to strengthen her resolve as she considers what the firm did to Walton.
She is blinkered. She's sitting here saying, oh, Robert's just like Ellie, they don't count to these lawyers and we have to make them pay. But at the same time, she was in his house, meant to be helping him, but instead texting Alfie and trying to deal with her own thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, she now has this document receipt that Alfie had told her about and has collected the 3 signatures. And we go back through the episode where we see her doing that.
Yeah, I think the last one was when she was in Senior's office, and when he turned to look at the picture that she pointed out.
Took a picture of the signature, yes.
Yeah.
She thinks that his signature is the match for the document receipt, and that makes him the villain, which is obviously far too obvious at this stage, unless it really is that straightforward.
Well, we finished with her saying that she's sure that he is their guy, and the next step is proving it. But proving what? He signed for a document?
No, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so the points that we've just made are what my notes are here. Like, she's got some nerve taking issue with that, and also he's clearly being set up as a villain far too obviously.
That is far too obvious.
What I think might happen, and again, I think they hinted at that in this episode, is that she might realise that it doesn't matter, and that the end of this resolution isn't going to be putting someone in jail, it's going to be her getting over it.
Yes, because no matter what happens, it'll be a hollow victory.
Yeah, it's not going to make her feel any better if someone goes to jail.
No.
It's not going to bring, it's not justice, it's not what she's looking for.
And also, I think this will take years to get through the courts, especially because of their knowledge and the power and the resources that they have. It's not a case of, I found a video of you murdering someone, you're going to jail within the space of a year. That will drag out through the courts.
Yeah. Quickly going through the main case in this episode, it was a claim by Robert Walton on behalf of his late wife Sandy against Foundate, the company now operating the building in which they lived. There was Legionella found in the water there, which was in her bloodstream when she died, along with black mould, which Madeline found during a mediation hearing while looking for documents. This resulted in an offer to settle worth $6 million with a fund set up for other victims, which Robert accepted, but Foundate avoided making that payment by shifting their assets to another corporate body and liquidising the company that was liable to him.
Very good. Production information. I actually don't have the original air date this week.
Okay.
And the director is Kat Coiro, as we've had before. New writer, however, Jeffrey Lieber, the co-creator of Lost. Also been involved with Impulse, NCIS New Orleans, Miami Medical, Charmed, and Don't Look Deeper. In terms of the cast, let's go for Edwin this week to start with. Played by Sam Anderson. Born on the 2nd of April 1947 in South Dakota as Samuel Leroy Waxdal.
That's a better name.
He has also appeared in Lost, ER, Forrest Gump, Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
Who was he in Forrest Gump?
Don't know, I've not seen Forrest Gump.
Oh, okay. It's a good film.
Yeah. Water for Elephants, Justified, Married to the Kellys, Friends, The X-Files, Live Shot, and Growing Pains. He's a father of twins and is a member of the Mystery Writers of America.
Oh, that's quite good.
Mrs. Belvin is played by Patricia Belcher. She was born in Montana on the 7th of April 1954. I know her from Jeepers Creepers, also in Flatliners, 500 Days of Summer, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, the villains of Valley View, Teachers, Bones, Good Luck Charlie, Always Sunny, Community, Boston Legal, Norm, Murder One, and Seinfeld, amongst many other things. Her and Sam Anderson are prolific character actors. Right. Finally, John Billingsley was Robert Walton. He was born on the 20th of May 1960 in Pennsylvania. Probably best known for Masters of Sex.
I wouldn't say so.
Suits?
No.
True Blood?
Nope.
NYPD Blue?
Not that one.
The Others?
Yeah, it's one of the others.
X-Files?
No.
Harry's Law?
Not that one.
24?
No. Although he was quite good in that.
Okay, what about the Star Trek Enterprise where he was in 98 episodes?
Yeah, he was Dr. Phlox. So
Dr. Who? Dr. Fox?
Phlox, Phlox, heavy prosthetics. So some people might not recognise him, but I think he's fairly well. You notice him.
Okay. Apparently, in The Other Guys, which was a TV show, he played a scientist with a fascination for Star Trek.
That's quite good.
And he is married to actor Bonita Frederici, yeah, I think so. Yeah, she's been in lots of things as well. A little bit of trivia. Do you have anything you want to go?
A couple of bits and pieces, yeah. So The post-it notes, we got a close-up of the post-it notes next to the 3 main potential villains on Maddie's board. The one next to Julian says, see article about him. The one next to Senior says, need to make a good first impression.
Right.
And the one with, there's 2 for Olympia. One says, must outshine her assistants, find her soft spot. And the other one is, turned down an unfair settlement in the Harrison case. Good character.
Okay.
One other bit of trivia I've got is about Karl Rove, who's in the photograph with Senior. He was a controversial, or is a controversial character who's been linked to Watergate, as well as other nefarious activities, including circumventing rules on government record keeping, and some believe him to be a war criminal.
Okay, I've got 2 bits of trivia.
Okay.
The first, I think, was mentioned in the clip where there's a reference to the Andy Griffith Show, and she talks about Don Knotts.
Barney.
Yes.
Okay.
Don Knotts played the sidekick Barney Fife in the Andy Griffith Show, but he also joined Matlock as Les Calhoun for 17 episodes during season 3 to season 6, but it wasn't considered a success. I think he tried to bring in his old friend and give him a part on the show, but and Andy Griffith himself had said that it just didn't work. He wasn't right for the show, so it wasn't.
Enough.
Yeah. The Johnson and Johnson Texas two-step that they referred to was, it's quite famous, this. They were subject of over 26,000 lawsuits claiming that this baby powder caused ovarian cancer.
Right.
They've also been involved in, there's a whole section on Wikipedia about their litigation and controversies, and is currently embroiled in an opioid scandal.
There you go.
Yeah.
Next week,
What have we got?
old wounds laid bare, and the team faces some internal turmoil in Claws.
Okay, well, until then,
Cheerio.
bye-bye.